Hello everybody, welcome to Cloverdale. I'm Chief Jason Jenkins of North County Fire Cloverdale, and I want to welcome you today for this exciting information piece about the CWPP and the grant opportunities that's been awarded to the district up here. First off, I'd like to thank you, Mayor Todd for being here today, Supervisor Gore, Director Taylor, and all important stakeholders from CERT and our community leaders who really made this event happen. So first off, I'd like to say, when we started, it was about 2020, where the community, our CERT members, fire district leadership, created a Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And in that plan, it identified areas within the district that would be beneficial to help reduce potential wildland fires, doing home hardening, fuel reduction, reducing ember spread during a wildland fire. And that work led to identifying a lot of areas within the district that needed improvements. And so from that document, it was adopted from the City Council and the Board of Directors and supported by the supervisors in the county. That really was the basis and foundation that led to actual vegetation management work being done within the district. And so that first phase of the CWPP, really what kicked that into high gear was about $500,000 funding from the county, which enabled us to focus on the top 5 priorities within the CWPP. As that vegetation management work continued throughout the district, we knew to be successful in meeting the objectives in all 43 treatment areas identified in the CWPP, that additional funding would need to be secured. And so through that, a grant was submitted to FEMA with the support of CalOES, and going through many levels of review and support from local officials, we were able to secure that grant with a no match and support from CalOES. And really is an exciting opportunity to deal with some of the potential fire problems in the North County. And so what it kind of looks like in the CWPP is there's 2 phases to this. And the first phase is really a lot of ground proofing, working with residential property owners in the area, receiving permission, coming up with a documented, coordinated plan of what the work is going to look like, what the scope. Once that's all done and that's approved through FEMA, phase 2 will be actual vegetation management work on the ground. And that's really the exciting part, and really the goal that we're after is to create a safer community, reduce the risk from major destructive wildland fires entering the community, and put us at a little bit of ease, but always know that we need everybody to do their part in vegetation management. We need everybody to do what they can, their own little piece of property, and we're doing everything we can to partner with you to make this a better area to live in the area of wildland fires that we've dealt with in the last 5 years.
Hey everybody, I want to thank you for joining us here today. James Gore, Sonoma County Supervisor, and I sit here surrounded by fire chiefs, by community emergency response team volunteers, by fire districts, by all of our community in celebrating this moment. $7.4 million from FEMA to do wildfire mitigation, good veg management projects, sound in science, planned appropriately to fit this community, these ravines, these mountains, and this vegetation. Done in a way led from the community up, with you all grant writing it, to make sure that we deliver as government in the true aspect of community first. We have gone through so much. 2017 was our first big mega fire, the Tubbs. 24 people in Sonoma County perished. 5,300 homes. Since that time, we've had many more fires, many more floods, droughts, pandemic, potential earthquakes. But we know that the readiness comes from you all in the community. And the CERT teams, our community emergency response team volunteers, you are a part of the vital we. Government's at its worst when it says, we got this, looks at the community and says, but that we does not include you. Government's at its best when it truly is a we that the community responds together. You all have risen up, you came to me, you said you needed money for planning, we got the funding to create the Community Wildfire Protection and Prevention Program. You took that And then you went out and you wrote the grant with us, with the fire district, to get $7.4 million. This is going to be developing, delivering over the next 2 to 3 years, and this is going to make our community better. Not only better, not only safer, not only more united, but at the same time, we got more work to do. Every time we celebrate something, it's to give each other a high five and say, what else are we going to do to become the most resilient community in the United States? Thank you for joining us here today. Let's roll.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Todd. I'm the mayor of Cloverdale. I've lived here for 46 years, and so I've been through a lot of change, a lot of emergencies, a lot of different issues that we've dealt with. And so first thing I want to say thank you for all of you being here. No matter what your part is, you've all taken part in what's going on today, and what's been changing in Cloverdale to protect your community. Whether it's all the way from the fire chief, all the way down to the ones that poke the stick in the hive on social media, wherever they are, you're keeping people informed and alert and ready to help, and that's a big deal. Today's announcement of the $7.4 million grant funding is nothing short of hard work, of the persistence between the public and private entities working together to do everything in their power to protect us. This is one of those things that you don't ever see it happen, and when it does, it's very imperfect, to say the least. Because who would think that in an emergency, someone's going to leave their home and go protect others instead of themselves? That's what you guys are in here for, and that's what you guys are doing. Over the past years, since about 2017, we've had some pretty horrific fires, whether it's Lake County, Sonoma County, all over the place. And the takeaway was we are all very unprepared, and the only thing we can do is get everybody on board to be as prepared as possible. I never imagined that I'd be sitting in Santa Rosa cooking thousands of meals for first responders, for homeless people coming in because their house has just burned, seeing people rolled in U-Hauls with the doors up because the caretakers have left them for dead in senior centers and places like that. It blew my mind to see that we are so unprepared for these types of emergencies. When you're in big emergencies, you run out of your public service people really quick. I guess work for the sheriff's office. When you have 9 people working a shift, that doesn't do much for a county, for hundreds of thousands of people out there. It doesn't do much. When you're working in Cloverdale and you have up to 2 cops a day, who's out there getting the 150 people out of King's Circle? Nobody. So that's why we're all here. Because of these experiences, we as a community have come together and created ways to bridge the gaps. We created evacuation centers, evacuation maps and plans. We started Resilient Cloverdale, Clover Ready, the CWPP, the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, and the CERT, which is the Community Emergency Response Team. During my time on the council, my goal has always been to keep our community as safe as possible. I've made vegetation management one of my top priorities, worked very close with Supervisor Gore, and we have done great things at this point. We've watched fires that should have taken over the east side of Cloverdale and pushed into town stop at a dead end because of what his money and his push gave to us to make happen. And we saw a fire happen at the River Park, and it went 9 acres in no time, and it stopped on the line where we had been doing our vegetation management. That's a big deal. With no winds, it was crossing the freeway. Chief I've talked to him a million times about this, that the work that we've done together between all of us protected Cloverdale. And there's multiple events like that. I've made it my top priority in hopes that if we ever had an emergency, I've done everything in my power to protect this community and protect my friends and family. Because of these public and private partnerships, I feel we're on the right track. This grant proves that. So, Jeff, thank you for everything you've done. You're an asset. I cannot thank the people in this room enough, or the people that are up here that are going to be speaking today enough. They truly care. They do leave their families behind and go protect yours. The amount of stress and heartache and money that is invested in this is unmatched. So I'm going to thank you, Supervisor Gore, for everything you do. Chief Jenkins of Turbeville, thank you. Chief Ferguson, Police Chief, he's been an asset for the Clover Ready and Resilient Cloverdale. Jeff Peters with CERT and COPE, and Daniel Homsey, all of his staff, all of everybody's staff, everybody in charge of all these programs. I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart for being the leaders that you are. Thank you.
When I learned a little bit about trying to protect our property, I called Cloverdale Fire, got a hold of Rick Blackman. He took me down to Steve Baxman, chief, down in Rio Nito area, and I ended up buying a fire truck. And
Love that truck.
because we had 14 volunteers, and the Cloverdale Fire Department was a volunteer-driven fire department, they trained us on how to use that fire truck. And lo and behold, when the Tubbs fire was going on, the fire departments were all very, very busy down in Santa Rosa saving lives, which was the #1 priority. And most of this area up here had been completely evacuated. But then the pocket fire showed up. And so our team went up on top of the hill and spent 40 hours up there with 2 bulldozers that farmers had, and we built the fire break and spotted the uphill and upwind of the fire. And then about, I don't know, 30, 40 hours into it, the fire, our bulldozer guys are not like the bulldozer guys that work for CAL FIRE. They're farmers, so a 30-degree slope is about as dangerous as we ever get, whereas those guys go down like really steep slopes. So our guys did the best they could, but the fire went around the bottom of the hill and started getting up toward Palomino Lakes.
Yeah.
So I called Chief Jenkins on the phone. I said, we did everything we could do. It's going to hit Palomino Lakes pretty soon. And he said, can you wait one? And I said, yeah. And he was at the IC. And next thing I know, he said, tell everyone there's aerial support coming. Next thing we knew, a huge tanker dropped retardant all through that whole area and stopped the fire dead. And all we had to do was go down there and kind of dig through a little bit, but that was it. That was my first exposure to being a volunteer. And we felt like we could use a little extra training since we were not firemen. And we needed to do what we could do to help the community, so we started with COPE, and then we ended up with people wanting more training. We ended up with CERT. But the one thing that's been constant in all of that was the willingness of people in the community to volunteer, the willingness to give their time to help out, to help their neighbors. And that's been an amazing journey for me to watch that. As in Cloverdale, we see people everywhere that we know, we have coffee with them, we have interactions with them, and we all try to take care of each other. I've had some wonderful experiences. Madeline and Susie agreed to take on the job of chairing the CWPP. Supervisor Gore arranged, as he's told you, for the seed money. About $150,000 was for the CWPP, and the rest was for actual vegetation management. But with that seed money, we were able to get the community involved, be able to have all the meetings, do the fire science work, and get a plan. And you can't get grants unless you got a plan. So we had one. It was brand new, and it had just been approved by all the fire officials in the county and everybody else. And we submitted that, and lo and behold, we're here now. We have $7.46 million that will allow us to do a significant amount of vegetation management in the highest priority areas as selected by the 2 fire chiefs in the whole Cloverdale area. None of it would have happened if it wasn't for the spirit of this community, where everybody said, I'm willing to volunteer, I'm willing to show up. And so for that, I want to thank the community, and particularly all the senior CERT people, many of whom are here, who literally have been with me as we've trained. We've started with a class of 17 in Cloverdale, and as of today, we have 176 certified CERTs that we have trained throughout the country.
There's kind of two contrasting things here, right? If this was an emergency, I'm going to be, or the firefighters will be like one person on your property, not too many decisions we can make, and we just do what we think's best, and we don't really involve you at all. We're on the way other end of the spectrum now. We're way out in front of the next fire that might burn in 5 or 10 years, or maybe never happens. We don't get credit for it, but maybe it never happens. So Now we got all these decisions, we gotta think about how we're gonna do this. So that's a good thing. So the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, that's county funded, county supported, community driven versus a plan coming from government down on the people versus the people up. It's an example of how to do it. What works here may not work in other spots. What Jason and I try to do is very unique for the North County. Jeff running bulldozers and running fire engines may not be what you would do in the city, but maybe that's what we do here because we got to do it. So what we're going to embark on now, it's going to go quick because I think we have about 4 years to do this. We're going to take basically the paper Community Wildfire Protection Plan, which was, had to meet 3 objectives, identified where work should be done based upon science. We're going to take it out of, okay, where's that physically going to happen on the ground? And how do we get that permission to do that? How do we estimate a cost for that and go hire a contractor to do that? We may do some as the fire department, but it's probably mostly going to be contracted out. So how do we manage that? So some people may ask, well, why are the fire departments doing vegetation management? You should be running to fires and dealing with it. Well, no. Jason and I want to deal with stuff before. We don't want to see the bad day. And I know Mayor Lands, I think the stats are this year, no fires in the river park. Is it coincidence that we just did a bunch of veg management down there? I don't know. We never really get credit for preventing an emergency. And so there's a lot of great stuff that can come out of it. And the next year it's basically planning. We're going to plan how we're going to do this, get the environmental compliance in place. Because it's a federal grant, we also got to do a federal NEPA, what's called NEPA, as well as state law. We want to set this up so we can do long-term maintenance. How we fund that, how we do that, we'll figure it out. But we want to do this long-term. And while this work will happen on private property for the most part, it's for community benefit. So we don't know exactly where the work's going to happen. We have a pretty good idea from the Wildfire Protection Plan, but now it's going out there and making it happen. This is not clear cutting. This is not doing things that are environmental damaging. This is basically treating the vegetation to how a natural wildfire would have burned. So we reduce ember production, bombarding down on homes in the city, like we saw in Tubbs and other fires, campfire, restoring an ecological process, a surrogate for wildfire, maybe improving ecological habitat values. That's what we're looking to do. It's called veg management, but that's what we're looking to do. Fires may still happen, but it reduces intensity. Maybe we can do prescribed burning in the future as well. So Cloverdale as a city, there's not much work probably going to happen in the city, so it's all looking around the outskirts on the boundary. And we'll decide exactly where that work's going to happen the next year. From there, and roughly we have about $150,000 to do this planning exercise, plan it out next year. From there, then we're eligible to get the remainder of the funding. So then it's going to be game on. 3 years of basically going at it. It'll probably be sawdust in the air and everything. But we'll be going to town. So weather cooperating, everything works out. You guys can start seeing a lot happen. So we're just in the very beginning stages. We still need everyone to do COPE and CERT, individual preparedness. We still need everyone to do defensible space. We still need everyone to do structural hardening. We still need to prepare for flooding, earthquakes, everything else out there. And then we're going to work together to do this project to do wildfire risk reduction for the benefit of our current and future residents in the Cloverdale area. So I think it's going to be great. I think it's a great example of how things should go, and maybe even a case study if it makes it to FEMA and everywhere else. It's been great because it's what you guys want. It's way different than me trying to sell a project to you guys. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark.